How's it going, everybody? My name is Azabiel, and how's my intro go? My name is Azabiel, the Guildmaster of the Guild of Legends, located in the heart of the multiverse. And today we're jumping back into Minecraft on the HiVECORE server, uh, because sometimes you need to just have something to chill out and relax, and when you don't want to think about too much in depth about everything that's been going on. I bring that up in regards specifically to some very big TTRPG news that's been going around the internet. I'm sure if you are in the TTRPG hobby in any form, you might be a little bit aware of what's going on there. And I'm not going to get into too much into it right now. Unless discussion starts up in the chat or with someone else. But right now it looks like unlike last time where we had a whole crew, where it's just me and Dregn doing our usual weekly usual weekly Minecraft. Excuse me, started saying the wrong name there. Um, so I am currently atop the Spire of Ascuron. I will be working on finishing this up. Uh, I'll just need to remind myself exactly where I am on my schematic here. Because I did a poor job of making notes for myself. Um, but it looks like this should be right there. So that is this right here is layer 24, 25, 26. So I need to be working on layer 27. And you know what? As we go into this, maybe I will go ahead and jump down into the HiveCore Minecraft channels, and we can see what Dreggon's got going on.
Roll the dice every time.
Rolling dice.
Rolling dice. Yeah, buddy. What's going on?
I love
Zabiel,
rolling
everyone.
dice.
Oh, I know you do. What are you gonna do about D&D now that? Actually, I guess you posted about it a little bit. You want to talk about it? Have you
uh,
talked about it yet?
I haven't really talked about it on stream at all. I was just mentioning, Minecraft, nice chill thing to wind down after a busy news day. Um, yeah, Minecraft there. Minecraft. I said D&D when I tried to say Minecraft earlier. I said Minecraft when I tried to say D&D now. Uh, with everything that's going on with their OGL thing and their lack of communication, their attempt at communication that they just eventually decided to bail out on, it's not a good look.
Yeah, yeah. So for those that
It's
don't know,
rough.
OGL is the Open Gaming License, and Wizards of the Coast, who nowadays is owned by Hasbro, if I'm not mistaken, and
Hmm.
their open gaming license basically allowed the kind of modification and like the home brewing and the expansion by the community. So from say a gamer's perspective, you can consider it much like modding in a way, right? How the modding community behind games is had recently or not long ago been kind of controlled depending on the publisher and developer behind a game, right? Now we're seeing that being done by Wizards of the Coast, who owns the Dungeons and Dragons license. And unfortunately, a lot of this news, if I'm not mistaken, got attention because probably arguably the single group that is responsible for the biggest expansion of awareness around Dungeons and Dragons and growing that community exponentially was a group called Critical Role, right? Run by Matt Mercer and a bunch of voice actors. Many of you guys probably heard about it. But apparently, what? They saw the leaks and they're like, well, doesn't this technically mean that like what we're doing is now going to be subject to their new terms, which could effectively ruin that franchise? And they have a massive following, but I only know about it from kind of a cursory level, but as you know a little bit more about it in particular.
Uh, I've been kind of following it today and yesterday as awareness of it has been really ramping up, and people have really been making moves. Yeah, Critical Role, like you said, arguably one of the most influential groups in the current day popularity of D&D, because they launched their stream in I think 2015, like early 2015, and
Sounds about right.
uh D&D 5e had only come out the year before. And I mean, Critical Role is how I got into playing D&D these days.
Well,
um
I think a lot of people did the same, right? Because they saw Critical Role and they saw how much fun people could have in a. They added a lot of extra flavor with the voice acting experience, where they really rolled into the characters. Whereas I think before people heard D&D and they knew kind of sorta that it's a bunch of nerds at a table doing something, but I don't think a lot of people really understood just how much entertaining it looked to be and could be, and many people found out was right.
exactly, yeah. But yeah, with them being kind of one of the most influential groups, uh seeing what a lot of people have been latching onto was that Matt Mercer had liked some tweets
Mhm.
in regards to people's response to this OGL leak.
Yeah,
Um,
which
Kind of indirectly, potentially voicing some level of support for what these people were saying in regards to these leaks. Um, Even though Critical Role as an organization hasn't made any official uh, statements or anything on the matter, you know, people pay attention when someone they're following, of that degree, uh, likes or retweets something.
hmm it's
Um,
actually ironic that we're seeing this with D&D when we recently saw the exact same similar parallel, I would argue, BS happening in like the film industry with like Henry Cavill going away
mhm.
from The Witcher and being like, I'm gonna start my own shit.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's going to be
it's
interesting to see what Mercer and that gang decides to do. Do they continue supporting this franchise because, they got to where they were thanks to it, but do they yeah, it'll be interesting what choices they're going to have to make.
I the thing that I've said anytime I've talked about with anyone is that my opinion on the leak is that it's 15 pages of legalese and stuff like that, um and some preamble and things that are a little bit more decipherable, but ultimately it's so much work that someone would have to do, like an insane amount of work that someone would have to do to fake this, right? um
Oh, it didn't
which
look fake from what I've seen.
exactly. And then the fact that like Kickstarter has come out partially confirming some of these things. And you're seeing other large publishers like MCDM and Kobold Press, who are some of the most prolific third-party publishers for D&D 5e content out there,
Yep.
pushing up their plans, jumping into making their own new systems, stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
they see
That
an opportunity.
yeah, uh, like because these are the people you would expect would probably have some insider knowledge. They're in the industry and could very well be people that Wizards of the Coast got in contact with about this, like they did for Kickstarter. Which just all this lends so much credence to the realness of this leak. And when I look at this leak, the my perspective of it is that for something like this to even become a draft internally with such blatant, like, cartoon comic book Disney villain vibes
Yeah.
is insanity. Like, that's a huge red flag already. Like, it shouldn't it feels like it shouldn't get to that point even as a draft. Like,
Nah, you have
someone
no
should
idea,
have the
bro.
sense to be like this I mean, yeah, like business stuff is wild and shit shit's grim all the time. But like, it's just like when I read it, it's like the only description I can give is like cartoon villain.
Oh
Like it's
man,
like,
you know
oh,
what's incredible?
you might technically own what you have, but actually, it's all mine.
Yeah, it's always been mine. It's yeah, it's wild, and I think this is one of the good things I've been talking about the internet is the fact that people are so capable of being of voicing and connecting with like similar thoughts. I mean, there's bad to that as well, but in situations like these, it really kind of unveils or lifts the veil, I should say, right? Because
Mhm.
I'll tell you, this shit's been going on in business for years, and it's
Right.
disgusting, and it's part of the reason why I'm like I need to step away from this industry because although I'm not in the industry of screwing people, like I was part of a cybersecurity organization that was trying to protect businesses from people like their customers getting breached. But of course, the sad reality of that environment was is that businesses wouldn't even take security seriously until a breach happened. And I'm just like, do you understand like the ecosystem you live in? And you're telling me that we have to like make an argument of why security is important. It's the same shit going on in business though, where it's like you would think the humanity of it would just be like, hey, this has been working for so long. We've exploded. We've gained so much. Like, let it grow. Let people enjoy it their way. And you see this all the time in gaming where like the modding community literally has saved games in the past or a dead game exists still because there's a passionate modding community that makes it good and their modding capabilities is what brings people back or to it or to play Skyrim for the 15th goddamn time, right? The fact that business looks at it profitably now with the eyes of, hey, we got to grow. If we can grow more and show more growth, we'll get more money from investors. I don't know if Hasbro has anything to do with these changes because typically what happens when you get eaten up by a larger company, we see this with Blizzard and Activision. We all see that. Well, I saw it coming a mile away, but no one fucking paid attention until the bad shit happens, right? But
Mhm.
anyways, I'm rambling on my soapbox. Let me get off for a second. But no, this is it really doesn't surprise me, and everything I've seen about it just seems completely valid because business and investors is ultimately what's driving it. And if the community doesn't act, and it's cool that the D&D community has such a passionate, massive group of nerds behind it, that I'm seeing quite a lot of traction with that tag. What is it? Cancel the sub or something like that.
There's cancel a
Stop the sub.
sub. Yeah, stop the sub. I think you're
Yeah.
right. It was that, and then there's also open D&D
Yeah,
is going
and the fact
around.
that large D&D communities, right, not just Critical Roles group is kind of like, what do we do about this? But a lot of large D&D platforms and alternate communities that really kind of grew with this brand are even voicing that, hey, like this is not right. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the music industry and the film industry is plagued with this kind of bullshit. It's unfortunate that we live in this kind of world, but hey, I'm glad to see people aware and talking about it and actually doing something. Hopefully, it grows that way because man, it's such a niche community. Like people can actually make a difference here.
Yep. I mean, kind of on that point, I was kind of comparing this while talking to some friends, um, about Mass Effect in the past.
Oh yeah,
Franchise I was always a pretty big fan of once I got into it. They had their Mass Effect Andromeda release, which was met with some very significant critical uh, uh,
some
pushback,
a
uh,
lot.
an overblown amount. I,
Mm-hmm.
I I would
Mm-hmm.
I would say, and that for a time killed the franchise.
Oh
They
yeah.
ended any work on planned DLCs that probably were already decently well into production at that point. Um, just completely cut it down because of this, like, you know, it's a video game. It's a sci-fi video game. It's a sci-fi RPG video game. Like, it's just getting more and more niche the closer you get to Mass Effect. And
Yep.
it was enough for EA, BioWare, whoever makes that decision. I suppose that would ultimately be EA probably, uh, but they killed the franchise. Uh, which they ended up going back and start working on Mass Effect 4 or whatever they would end up calling it. But what is happening with Wizards is affecting such a larger population, and it's like they don't realize that the internet loves banding together to destroy things.
Nowadays, it
Yeah.
didn't used to be like that, but yeah, nowadays everyone's looking for an excuse to bring down the big boys. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's also hard to say that because realistically, right, the majority of people are not on Twitter. The majority of people who play D&D, I doubt, are on Twitter. There's probably a higher margin compared to other verticals. Verticals being like other categories of like gaming, for example. Gaming probably has a tiny percentage of its player base actually on places like Twitter, but D&D has so many, again, of these kind of like pillars of their community, right? Critical Role being a massive one of them. They
Yeah.
all have their own like respective pyramids, and those pyramids underneath them of the people are all kind of interconnected. So the word of mouth is going haywire on this topic right now.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane just how intensely this is burning. And I don't know about you, but burning really does feel like the appropriate term to me.
Yeah, way to kill a franchise. We're seeing it more and more the more this kind of shit keeps happening, which is
Mm.
good. I mean, ultimately, awareness around this behavior needs to happen because it's been going on for so long, and I'm so tired of it. Like, I don't know how I can go back to working for people that operate in this umbrella.
But it's not all doom and gloom, fortunately. Paizo actually just put out a statement today, which they kind of they're kind of calling out Wizards in doing it, like
Of course,
in
they would. They're
the statement,
competitors.
because they're like, we've been waiting for Wizards of the Coast to make a statement on this, but as they haven't, here's our take. Because obviously as a company, they wanted to wait until there was an official statement, but then Wizards of
Hmm.
the Coast, they had their spot, they had it on the schedule, and then they canceled their stream.
And no, with no explanation.
Yep, yep. And that was really, I think, a thing that lit the fire for a lot of people joining on the stop the sub and all of that. Um,
What's funny is a lot of people kind of know that this behavior is going on, and we still kind of allow it because we vote. the it's hard to use this phrase because a lot of people, I get why people don't do it, but vote with your wallet, right?
yeah,
When everyone's talking about it, when it's the next big thing, when it's the thing that as people stream more and whatnot, it's like, oh, maybe this game will help me out. I get why people buy into it. It's for the greater good, or at least hopefully, or for entertainment, whatever, to each their own. But yeah, this is a case where I hope the impact tells the company to be like, shut up, let people enjoy it and move on. But I know they won't. It's unfortunate. I know they won't.
yeah. Um, the upside that I'm looking forward to coming out of this is MCDM and Kobold Press being some of the the names I mentioned before,
Yep.
already talking about making their own systems moving forward. Paizo kind of at the head of a move to, per their statement, put together a new open license, a new open RPG creative license for to ensure that this won't happen again. Because the idea behind it, they want it to be held by someone who doesn't have a direct stake in it. So it's not
Yeah.
going to be held by Paizo. I think currently the plan is for the legal team that is kind of working on this, which has people from the original OGL document working on it. Um,
Nice. Interesting.
uh, it's I suppose supposed to be held initially by that legal team, and then they're looking to put it in the hands of a nonprofit that won't
Muck
it
it up.
is yeah supposed to help
Not
prevent the
incentivized by,
abuse.
yeah. That's an
um
interesting way to move forward. I like that, or at least
yeah,
initially.
so like if that ends up panning out, you know, um that puts what these third party publishers and creators and stuff would want in an open license out there for them to uh you know mess with and make their content and stuff. They won't have to completely abandon whatever they've been working on. They won't have to uh agree to this insane, you know giving up a quarter of your revenue and then some, and an arm and a leg on top, as well as the kitchen sink. Um,
Yep. Yeah.
so if that works out, that's going to be great. But in the meantime, looking at some of these other game systems like MCDM with Matt Colville behind it,
MC.
uh,
What does that stand for?
that's a good question. I don't know offhand. I just know that they're one of the bigger publishers out there right now. Um, but them and Kobold Press were like the first two big groups I saw that were like, we're making a new system.
Yeah.
Because
I
I think
think
MCDM said they had the plans already, but they just pushed up the schedule because of this.
right. Why not? Right. It's like, hey, capitalize on it.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a bunch of people who are just like, you know what, I'm done. What's the next best option? So of course, if a big guy like Paizo comes forward and it's like, hey, check this out, and it turns out to be decent, then they got a huge opportunity to get more people. But that said, I think now's the time for a lot of you dorks out there who like D&D to maybe consider fleshing out an idea or two.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've thought about it. I
Yeah,
was like, what can I do? What could I do here? Like
well, just think of it.
this could be the opportunity for something like this.
Right. So, I mean, especially if you got like a good knit of people to talk about it with, think about it. I mean, it's not, it's kind of related, but it's also unrelated. It's like a lot of big successful YouTube channels today have talked about like what they did before they got big, right? And a good
Mhm.
chunk of them, and a big popular one that a lot of people recognize the name of Mr. Beast, right? Jimmy Beast. That guy said, he had a group of friends, and for just like 1 year, they just like talked and brainstormed for a year about YouTube and thumbnails and content and all that BS. I don't know how important it was in hindsight, right? Because we don't really know what they did during that time, but I do think people who like D&D are sitting around talking about dumb D&D ideas anyways. So just maybe occasionally spend 30 minutes, be like, okay, let's work on this system and flesh it out. A big not to drag on too long, but another video game that's in the works right now, Ashes of Creation, is an MMO. A lot of people in the MMO sphere are excited about because it's being made by a guy who, though the business does appear to be making good money and it's modeled to do so, uh, they talked about how they had a wiki page that him and a bunch of video game nerds in the MMO sphere, when he was playing a lot of it, just shared ideas and talked about and fleshed out, basically like, if we made a game for us, what would it look like, what would we include, and that is
Yeah.
basically acting as their outline for this Kickstarter that they ran, and they're building a game right now.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I feel like so many people have those moments too where it's just like, what would we do? You know, like this is cool. What could we do like this?
exactly.
If we tried our hand.
Eh,
Um, I think just a lot of it is just like what if, but like you could actually you could do something. You could be the guy who does the thing. Huh. Trying to find
actually,
out where to put
am I still wearing
spruce
that
plants.
head?
Yeah.
I am. Maybe it would have been better I just stand here. Hey, these are
uh,
spruce, right? You can chop these down.
these are spruce. I
Yeah.
just had some spruce in my inventory. I just finished up with the Spire of Ascuron.
The
Uh,
what?
the Spire of Ascuron.
Sorry, come again?
The Spire Vascuron?
I think I have some tissues down here. You need one?
I have yet to work on the beacon that's going to go above it, but I finished up the main structure of it.
Let's move a little closer so it pops in. It's up here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, once you get like just past the corner of the building here, I think it'll start coming into view.
Oh, look at
There
that.
it
Here's our
is.
little ice track here. Ooh, look at that. That's pretty cool.
I was watching them kind of build this at the end of the last stream, just seeing because from up there you just see the blocks just kind of manifest.
Pop in.
You don't
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
see the people
Ooh.
from that far.
Pops you up real fast. Okay,
You got
so what
some
do we got
fancy
here? We're gonna.
technology going
Oh,
on here.
thanks for
Oh.
blocking my jump, bro. Got body blocked. Damn. But yeah, what is it? It's a boat track, right? So I think we go in,
Yeah.
we go up here, we go on a second floor. There's going to be something going on here, and then I know we got the finish line here, but I assume it would become a loop, and you
Yeah,
could technically go multiple laps.
my guess is it would be a circuit. And initially I thought they were crazy for starting at ground level here, but I guess because I thought if you took a boat into water, it would just sink. But I guess with the bubbly what's
Yeah, they did
it doesn't.
some voodoo magic over there.
Yeah. uh, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this. Like, I'm pretty sure this was like all the ice that we got.
Oh, really? They used it all up already? We had like 20 stacks of it.
Oh, okay. No,
Oh,
no, no. There's still a lot more. I thought they were saying.
okay.
I was kind of following what they were saying. I thought they were like, oh, we're out of ice or something.
Honestly, but considering how much ice we have left, pretty sure we had like all 3 or 4 of these. Yeah, I think 3 of them were full of ice at one point.
Yeah,
So,
it's
maybe we'll
gonna
let
be
out.
a
We'll see.
lot.
We'll see.
But
Well,
I think
apparently Neff knows where the good ice is at. So,
yeah, I think someone set up a. I think
oh,
Novastorm was setting up a portal for that.
yeah, they're actually here saying, Ellie's saying, Rig finished the nether path to the ice biome, so we get more ice for this.
uh,
Dang,
incredible.
Rig's always doing the works. But yeah, D&D. It's a hobby that I enjoy. I've
Hmm.
met good people through it. It's a fun way to have a good dorky time that I think is not enjoyed in a way found normally. Because unless you're doing, yeah, you're really not, because it's like you're with the help of the GM, right? It's an environment that you can let your imagination kind of go wild, and you can get people who like the gaming aspect of it. You can get people who like the role playing aspect of it. There's a mix of social and combat. It's the closest thing I could probably think of off the top of my head would be like people who go out LARPing, but that's a bit of an extreme even for this niche. Because what, like any sort of screenplay or any sort of like skit work or like that genre, I guess, unless it's improv, right? I guess it's the improv. So I don't know. There's something creative and special about this kind of storytelling from the person running its perspective, and then the people
Yeah.
playing it. Eh. I'm focusing on storytelling because I enjoy that aspect of it. But yeah,
Right.
well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's. I think for some, kind of a scary time with what's going on, but in some ways, like similar to how you could say it about a car crash, it's kind of exciting in a way.
uh, have you
um
been in one?
but just like genuinely with like what people are doing about it and stuff, like it's cool seeing what could come of this,
Yeah,
even if
that
the
is always
initial
exciting.
the initial situation is not great. The
Mm-hmm.
other side effects are they're looking up
There's an opportunity, and that excites a lot of people.
for sure.
Gosh, trying to do this labyrinth and going through. It's so easy to get like confused of where my spot is. I'm finding myself like going in circles.
Right.
I should have picked something smaller to build.
I think the problem I always have with Minecraft is I always like, oh, I want to build a castle. I want to build a giant mage tower. I want to do something big, because that would be
Hmm.
cool. But then it's like you get 2% into it. It's like, what have I done? This is so complicated.
Well, the
Um,
good thing is that you're actually doing it. Because
right.
there will come a point where you're like, it's finally done.
Yeah. But yeah, with this server, I've been making an effort to start small. I think the Grove was the loftiest thing, and that's just in terms of like footprint.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, now that I've done a few small things, maybe I'll start a bigger project, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. I wonder if there's a way for me to add arrows. How could I do? I have left and right arrows. I got an up arrow. What would I do for a down arrow? I guess a V would work. Maybe I could try that. All right, hold up, guys. I have to
And
work on this off camera.
it's a little bit late, but I did want to say thank you for the raid. I absolutely appreciate it. Anyone who's still around, anyone who's checking out what
Do you know
we've got going on here,
how far
thank you
done you are
guys.
with your little tower?
With the spire, the main structure is all done. I am gonna change the pillars on the outside, so I wanted to adjust them a little bit. But then
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have the beacon up top, which is gonna be just probably not even a very big thing. It's gonna be just a little bit of soul sand or soul soil or something that is gonna have big blue fire on top of it. So I
Nice,
think
nice. Okay.
I think that'll be fun to see above the tower. I just need to figure out what the best way to do it is going to be.
I assume it helps when you know like what's even in the game.
Probably a little bit.
Little bit.
I mean, the biggest problem I always had with playing modded Minecraft is that if you jump into the deep end and have a ton of mods going, it's like they add so much stuff, and if you're looking at like blueprints that someone else has made for just normal Minecraft, it's like, okay, this is cool, but I know there's stuff in these mods that could make this better, but then not even knowing where to start, what things to look at, like just because there's
Yeah.
so many things added.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be like a Skyrim mod that has a bunch of extra fun stuff added to it.
Yeah.
What are you saying here, Ellie? You can use item frames and add in staircases to make them look like arrows.
Oh
Item
yeah, because
frames.
when you make an item frame, you can put uh, basically any item into it, so it just looks like a painting with that item stuck in it. And then if you right click on it, you can turn the item.
And
So
it's
like,
in 8 quadrants, was it? So you can kind of make it point.
yeah.
There's
So
also
you can
magenta
do.
glazed terracotta, and that has an arrow shape.
Oh, I
Mag-
forgot about that.
magenta terracotta. What does that look like? I'm sure Googling that. Oh, that does have arrows on it. Literally.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Burrito is still by the portal.
Possible. Possible. Let's see. What would you need to make it just magenta terracotta and then you burn it?
That's one material I've never really used. I've messed with it in creative mode, but not in actual like survival. So I don't
Yeah,
even
would you
know that
require
process.
terracotta magenta dye. Clay. Clay. Do I have clay? But gosh, how many of those would I need? I would need 16 by 16. So I need a full stack? No, I need 2 stacks. So my idea here though, right? I think it's already been kind of spoiled enough. But if someone going through the maze gets really lost, my idea was the torch will take you to a path that will let you out. So the torch position, as much as I tried to throw off Spaceman, does have a intent behind its placement. So, and it also, adds to the dungeon feel, maybe, sort of, kind of. I don't know. It's just giving me a headache because it's like, shit, what position am I? What direction do these torches need to be? And then I'm kind of eyeballing it all right now. So maybe let me give it a try with the torches first. And if that really just doesn't work out, then maybe that terracotta would be a great idea. Yeah, because the issue is I don't want to put torches in every possible direction. I want it to be in places where it's like, oh, this will get me the hell out of here, right? And also as quickly as possible. I don't want someone to go like in circles, following them either. So they need to be a bit more strategically placed. So yeah, maybe my mistake is I didn't map it out. Typical mistake. You gotta measure it twice. I didn't do the second measurement. How many games you been running these days, dude?
I've had the one that's been running consistently for quite a while now. I've got one
Nice.
that's just starting up this month probably, and then I've got another one that's in the works.
For those confused, this guy here does professional D&D games. What was the site that it's on again?
Startplaying.games.
Slash.
Uh,
Don't
Let
tell
me
me you
see.
forgot your own site, dude. Come on.
I'm not sure what their formatting is for the profiles.
Oh, okay.
It's /GM/Azabio.
Oh, they got a GM in there. Okay.
Yep. That I had to
But
check that
yeah.
because I wasn't sure if it was just the name or not.
All right. You get a pass for now. So what is it? That one game that's been going on, they've been doing it for, shoot, what's it been? Like 6 months? More? Probably more, right?
More. Yeah. This game started, it was not the first one, so it's not coming up on a year yet, but it's probably a month or two, maybe 3 months out, somewhere in there. I would have to check to see, but yeah, it's close to a year running at this
That's
point.
nuts.
There's been some, uh seat changes with
Sure.
scheduling issues and stuff, as D&D games are known to
Prone to.
have, but
Yep. We know all
yeah,
about scheduling.
it's been going for a good long while now. uh they're getting pretty deep into all the content. I tend to run them pretty sandbox, so uh there's a lot of doing stuff that isn't the main story.
Of course there is. There always is. It's D&D.
Exactly.
But very cool. Glad to see it. All right. I think I got about a third of it done.
Yeah, with all this news too, I think one of the things I'm looking at is delving a little bit more deeply into other systems and stuff as well, because I think there
You always had a problem with that though.
right. I feel like there are people who this whole situation, just as it is even right now, is going to leave a bad taste in their mouth, and they might want to distance themselves from D&D specifically.
Yep.
Um, I still plan to use the stuff I've already invested in. Fortunately, I haven't invested everything into D&D Beyond because like so many other people, I've canceled my subscription. I don't want to support them if this is the move that they're going to try to make. But there's third-party stuff that I've really been liking for 5e that I'm still holding on to pretty tightly, and then Pathfinder, of course. I've been a fan of Pathfinder Second Edition, um, and I'm excited to see what these other publishers are working on. But that probably won't be for quite a while still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be curious to see what direction they take. 'Cause if I know one of the big things that turned a lot of people away from Pathfinder is the complexity of it, and
Yeah.
D&D always had the advantage, or 5e at least had the advantage of like their over like simplification. Although they had some challenges, kind of telling people over like forum threads and kind of getting the foundation of, hey, what's the intention behind certain rules as written, right, and whatnot, and
Hmm.
the things that they didn't consider, they kind of errated or whatever the heck that word is, through what additional publications and what is it, Unearthed Arcana, which was like their kind of sandboxy playground to make tweaks and changes, right?
Yeah.
And then the community obviously they had a few community dudes who would do their, I forget what they were called, but essentially the sage's advice or whatever, right? The
Yeah.
judgment of. So a lot of that, took quite. They did quite a bit with that, and got a lot of things answered. But if Paizo goes through this complex system that isn't doesn't have the potential for depth and homebrew that people can make it as difficult as they prefer, but also simple enough where it welcomes players to continue using it and playing it without feeling like they're struggling in a math course every time or whatever the deal.
Hmm.
So, I don't know. I'm hoping that they look at the success of 5e and realize that it's not just because of a group bringing awareness to it. It's also because of how the system was designed. The simplicity of it actually lends to a lot of the growth of getting people to actually enjoy it and get their feet wet. Because if they can't do that because it looks too confusing, or they never enjoy it because their first session is just like, what the, I still don't know what's going on, right? They're less likely to come back to it. But I think 5e didn't really have that problem. I mean, some people obviously were still, need a little hand holding here and there, but all in all, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah. The greatest strength of 5e absolutely is the ease of access. I feel
Yeah.
like maybe not the easiest for new DMs trying to learn how to run their first ever game, because a lot of it is just like, you're a DM, you can figure it out. Um, but for the players, it's fantastic.
Yeah. That's actually a funny way to look at it. Yeah, you're a DM. You know how to figure shit out. You know how to run these games, you nerd. Do it. And they did. What up, Zenobia? We're hanging out. I'm paused right now, so we're just vibing and talking about D&D drama while I work on a map that I probably should have added these. Well, no, I couldn't add it before because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. All right, I think I've heard this track enough. We'll switch to the next one. Oh, similar but different. A little faster. Ooh. Drama. Oh boy. Yeah, so there's some corporate bullshit going on with the company that owns Dungeons and Dragons, the franchise, right? Which is really the largest the largest hobby? No, the largest brand for the hobby. And well, there was something with their open license which allowed people to kind of mod it and play it their way that had leaked, allegedly leaked. But everything appears to be pretty legit, and a lot of people are not happy about it, and a lot of people are retaliating financially with their support, or lack of support for their proposed changes that are coming. I did a better job explaining it earlier, but the short of it is bad company do bad company things, and people, unsurprisingly, are upset and are actually talking and doing something about it from the looks of things. Like, it's actually, because it's such a niche community that it spreads, news like this will spread in that niche community, in a very passionate niche community at that, right? Because they all
Mhm.
cosplay, they all, many of them are playing it and doing it. It's not just, I don't know. I want to compare it to gaming, but gaming has become such a wide net of categories, and the type of people who fall into the gaming category are so varied, right? Like, hell, you have factions within gamers based on the game type and their play style and their age group and all sorts of crap, right? But when it comes to D&D and I guess tabletop RPG in general, the factions really come from which system they're playing under, right? So it's like
Mhm.
D&D is better, no, Pathfinder's better, no, Star Wars RPG is better, whatever. But D&D is by far the largest. It's like, God, what would you even compare it to? I can't really speak of it in like a gamer sense, but as far as like maybe publishers, like D&D is like the EA of the gaming publisher world. But again, business versus a game system, right? Just there's a difference there.
Mhm.
I don't know. What the hell would you even compare it to someone who doesn't know much about it, maybe?
Shoot, I don't like a much smaller Disney.
A much smaller Disney. Let's go.
You just have to preface it with several muches.
Muches, yes.
'Cause nothing is quite on that level in the tabletop world. But the kind of the strength of the identity and everything is there.
Yeah, I get what you're going at. Get what you're getting at. World of Darkness was, what was World of Darkness? You know what that one is?
That would be, I think, like where was there one just called Werewolf? Um, Vampire the Masquerade.
Is that what
I
you're
think
thinking
those
about?
are
Yeah.
all World of Darkness. I think.
I'm realizing as I'm setting up these torch locations I need to set up that I definitely found myself already making a couple locations where it's like, no, you can go this way and that way, but it's like, no, if they want to get out, they need to go this way, damn it. Gotta make that distinction. Yes, vampire, werewolf, hunter, and all those. Okay, yeah, so you know a little
Mm.
bit about it from that world. But yeah, imagine if their terms leaked, assuming their terms are good to begin with, but their terms leaked, and it's like, we're gonna make everyone who plays this game give us 40% of any money they make. That's, I think, kind of sort of boils down to the vibe of what's happening right now.
Yeah, a little bit.
Da da da, corporations.
Ah, gross.
The world we live in, still to this day, blows my mind. Yo, God, yeah, exactly. That's what a lot of people probably said. Holy mother of God. It's horrible. All right, let's see here. That's about half of it now. Okay, getting there. You know, I just realized going backwards is actually probably the smarter way of doing this.
Man, what should I? What what do people do in Minecraft?
Minecraft? Get better? I don't know.
Oh well, that's lost cause. Yeah, maybe I should see about making that path over to the grove. I think I'll do that. I'm gonna see what the
You said you're done with the tower now?
yeah, I haven't put the beacon, but yeah, the tower itself is done.
Basically done, huh? Nice. All right, all right. Yeah, actually, so every single one of these locations where I added 2 arrows is already misunderstanding what needs to be done here. All right, I think I got half of it done. Let's start with that. All right, where am I? So these go this way. We know that. I'm going to be talking to myself a lot if you're going to hang here. Let's see. This one, that's the exit. These go down. I need to count 1, 2, 3.
We've got more wayward portals by the grove.
Portals. You got portals?
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but every now and then, I think when someone wants to come out through Meg's portal, it will
Yeah,
instead just generate a new one across the water.
that's weird.
Yeah. I haven't checked out Cat City in a while. It's got this glass enclosure.
Oh yeah, is that where she keeps her fish? Pretty sure she made a little aquarium or something over there now.
That's what it looks like, yeah, on the water. Just a fancy little habitat. Oh, look, a frog.
Oh, and I've made another mistake actually. So I
Yeah.
put a marker on every square. It only needs to be on the forward square. Damn.
I don't know about anyone else, but I feel like I watched that frogs in a boat video
Yeah, what about
too
it?
many times.
Nice. Oh man. It's catchy.
Is
It's too short. 10-hour rendition when.
exactly.
Put it on loop. Frogs in a boat. No, you did a great job on that one. It was a good laugh. Actually, my favorite part of the video too is when at the end you're like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, sir, you can't be here."
Yeah.
It's like, man, denied. It was very funny. I enjoyed. Much enjoyment was had. That one, this one. I wonder what's technically shorter squares. Probably shouldn't be bothering with that.
Okay, so we need to get a mod for the server.
A what?
I don't know if it exists, but I need a mod where I can employ the services of a villager and be like, anytime you see this specific type of block show up in this area, you just destroy it.
Just take it.
And just have him set to get rid of obsidian near the grove.
And what if you could like befriend an Enderman? Is that what he's called? Tall boy that steals
Yeah.
tiles, and then you can like program him to just be like, yeah, just this is your box now, and this is the type of block I want you to go find, right? And then it just slowly trickles once he knows what block you're looking for. It's like a little dog. He's just a tall boy.
I was thinking of an Enderman quarry now. You just have him get rid of dirt.
Yeah. I mean, they already kind of do that, right? Or are they
A little
piling
bit.
it? I don't know.
If you want a real proper quarry, though, that's the domain of players. People will destroy chunks of the world.
Oh yeah, we got one of those in our group.
that
His name is Rachel.
that is like a method that I would do occasionally when playing Minecraft is I would just like pick out an area and then just dig everything all the way down to the base of the world in that area and just have a massive just hole in the ground and just take all the resources from it.
Fun.
It's not efficient by any means, but
It's fun.
it's neat.
Sounds neat. Yeah, sounds neat. It technically counts, right, guys?
I think some of the mods that add automation and stuff, they have like machines that'll do that, where it'll just like destroy every block in a chunk all the way down to bedrock.
Damn.
Hello,
Here
sir.
we are, playing
How are
on
you
a vanilla
doing?
server. Gosh, so what is it? For every quadrant, if I had to make 3 to 5 marks, that means I did way too much extra work. Damn. Make sure you get his he pays his taxes too. I feel like I'm getting deja vu. I feel like I've done this before.
Well, my stream has been joined by a cat.
Cat? Oh, your little guy.
He's just decided that he needs to come over here and have attention now.
As cats do. You know how cats are.
Yep. It's only really an issue when I'm playing Hunt or something. It's like I can't like
to concentrate. You're gonna get killed, cat.
There's a guy right over there, dude. I need to focus.
He's shooting at me. Okay. Oh, I scrolled up and there's more.
It is kind of nice though, because he's just real chill and relaxed about everything. So he's just like, "Hey, I'm just gonna sit over here now, and you're just gonna have to deal with it." But you know, is that like trying to walk on my keyboard or anything?
Nice. Your keyboard's too cold.
Yeah,
Plus,
probably.
you probably have an abundance of cardboard nearby that attracts him anyway.
Listen.
Possibly, maybe.
Well, you know,
you're not exposed. It's fine. We all do it.
Sometimes you just need a TV stand, and you don't have one.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, buddy.
I actually had a TV die on me recently.
Wait. Say again. TV what?
A TV died on me. Its screen just fully went out.
How old was the poor thing?
It's probably pretty old. I don't know. It wasn't mine originally.
Feels bad. Rip.
But it's functional enough where it still recognized that there was an HDMI hooked into it. The computer could still see it. You know, it was still getting power and everything. It's just the screen itself is dead. Which honestly, you know, could be worse. It'd probably be a pretty cheap repair. From what I've seen of working with TVs. But I ended up I'm so used to having two screens, especially when doing like D&D stuff, because I'll have like the virtual tabletop on one screen, and then I'll have like my notes and stuff on the other. Um, so I stole our living room TV to be my second screen now, because we don't even use a living room TV anyway. It's just there for looks at this point.
Yeah, and you don't have people over anymore. I mean, come on, man. We're post COVID. Our homes are locked down.
Exactly. That's that's definitely the excuse.
That's definitely the excuse. No, life also happens, but it will find a way. What is it? I'm looking which way now? I'm looking left and I need to figure out which of these windows to close to. Damn. How old's that TV you said?
I'm not sure. The one that is still functioning is like over 10 years old at this point, I think. So it's a wonder that one's even still working.
My brain is like, I wonder if its resolution's actually better than the monitor you had before.
The one I actually switched to is this like atrocious resolution. It's
Still black and white.
like because the two I had were both 1920 1080, perfectly reasonable. Because I'm not pro MLG gamer that needs 4K 60 FPS 5000 refresh rate billion pixel depth, whatever other jargon.
Yep.
But the one I have
The good
now,
stuff.
yeah, the one I have now, it's 768, which is just like a weird number.
768.
Yeah,
What is that? A 4x3?
Let me see. God, what is it specifically? 1366 by 768.
What in the world is that? An off-brand?
Well, I
that's a curious number. I don't.
Yeah, it's weird. The first time I saw it was on a laptop, but this is on like a full-blown like TV.
Huh. It works. That's what's important, I suppose.
Yeah, it's disgusting, but it works, which is the important
part. we can't complain about it if it works.
It could be worse.
Careful what you wish for. Alright, this is progress.
The terrain here is so all over the place. It's time for terraforming. Phantoms.
Oh, is it nighttime?
Yeah. I've apparently been awake too long. I definitely don't know what that's like.
None of us do. About it. every time we stream, somebody's out there yelling about phantoms.
The only thing I worry about is creepers, and that's only if I'm like actually working on like a building or something. If I'm just like out in the world, it's like whatever. I'll deal with it. I'm digging.
I need 2 bodies, so listen to the smooth voice of the radio, the WL,
It's me.
as a this guy. Yeah. Enjoy him.
Am I taking over your channel again? Heck yeah. So this is officially Yasir0088 channel, owned officially by Asbiel, the Guildmaster of the Guild of Legends located in the heart of the multiverse. We're taking the entire ship and we're gonna put it in a display box outside the guild. You can buy tickets to visit the ship and see it. And the cost of the tickets is just playing D&D with me. That's about it. D&D or other tabletop RPGs, as is kind of the situation right now these days. Man. Why is this terrain so full of hills? I gotta dig so much. I really need to get better at the whole, like, talking and not stopping talking thing without just rambling about nonsense, because I don't know how to do that very well, but, you know. People have figured it out, so it can't be that hard, right? I hope this path ends up not being terrible. Obviously not making like a permanent path right now. I'm just doing the layout work. How dare you shoot me, you evil person. You're dead now. Okay. On the road again. I
road again.
keep digging out blocks that I don't want to because I'm trying to break grass.
You can go out and break grass, dude. So hey, if you were to do like this interesting like idea of a VTuber GM collaboration, what would you think about?
What would I think about?
Yeah, like what would that situation look like?
I feel like it would look like a scheduling nightmare.
Well, let's assume somebody handled the scheduling.
Yeah, assuming the scheduling's taken care of, you know, we got that part figured out. Well, as you've mentioned numerous times, you know, the whole thing about being a VTuber is kind of playing a character a little bit. I mean, except for me, I actually am the guild master, but you know,
Of course. Never doubted you.
Obviously, it'd be weird if it was otherwise. I feel like that lends itself really well to having multiple voices in a game from the perspective of the NPCs that you almost never see. It's something I actually had considered reaching out to some people previously for doing, like, you know, in the one that comes to mind when I think about it for like character introductions is like Borderlands, where they would do these brief cut scenes, very stylized, where they have a person show up and they have like maybe like a tagline or something. I've thought about doing something like that for D&D games. Have some people record like an intro line for these prominent NPCs.
Everyone needs a catchphrase.
The problem with that is that after that clip is played, then you go back to those NPCs sounding like me, for example. But if you've got, you know, this collaboration going, then you've got potentially those multiple voices for more than just a moment, right?
Would be a good idea.
So I think that's like for the aspect of immersion, I think that's a really strong potential there. And then to as far as like world building and setting the scene and stuff goes, I think it's really strong because then you've got multiple minds. You've got a think tank going on, potentially
Okay.
to
Yeah.
come up with ideas that a single person just might not have thought of these things. So
So here's kind of asking you to sit in the seat of devil's advocate then. If someone who plays D&D, like another GM, right, reached out to you to try to do something like this, you'd probably do it just because you're sick, but let's say someone didn't have the degree of obsession that you do. What do you think would incentivize someone like that to join?
uh
Because
I
you're right, because one of the arguments would be like, hey, if we do this for like an NPC, well, if they show up for like one shot and are never seen again, is that value to them, or I don't know, what do you think as a GM?
um I feel like where this can appeal to less obsessed DMs possibly, uh is that I've sort of seen ideas similar to this previously. I've seen people talk about co-DMing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even talked to some people who've dabbled in it a little bit. But it's usually like two people, and like they would like split up the responsibilities, right? It's not just everyone does all the normal D&D, the normal DM stuff, just in their own little sections. It's you handle the encounter building. I'll work on the world building for this stuff over here. And you'll do these characters, I'll do these characters. I'll design the dungeons, you design maybe the overworld, kind of the broad strokes of the overworld, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Splitting up the larger responsibilities of the DM to people who are more enthusiastic for those aspects, people who specialize in those aspects, and can really put their all into it. Whereas if it's all in the hands of a single DM, you're gonna be better at some things than you are at others.
Right.
But then when you've got a team and you can divide, you can delegate those responsibilities to people specialized in them, the final product would almost certainly be a greater experience for everyone involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's a good argument. I like that. I could see a lot of there. So definitely there needs to be. So the relationship that you just described, super collaborative, super involved, trying to do as much as possible to let everyone lean into what they enjoy, hopefully what they enjoy about it, but also what they're good at with it, right?
Yeah.
Definitely comes across to me as something that would have to happen between those already acquainted, though.
Absolutely. Like I've seen people try to start groups like this on like Reddit and stuff like that, and it's like if you don't know the people you're talking to already, then you don't know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
and it could be. I mean, there's a lot of risk there.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. As there always will be when it comes to groups of people and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I could see that. I could definitely see that. What did I do here? Did I make an extra door?
I need more dirt. And the problem is the path I'm making ran right into a giant hole in the ground.
Hole in the ground.
And I don't want to go around it. So instead, I'm going to get rid of the problem by filling it in. I have a good shovel. I am going to have to recharge my shovel soon, though. It's running a bit low.
Plug it in for a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of them electric shovels.
Wouldn't that be nice?
And
do you
when
think
does
is the hardest?
Minecraft add a bulldozer? Add a
Man, can you
backhoe?
imagine if there were vehicles in this game?
Be kind of. One thing I've always wanted was like ships.
I guess the only thing you have as far as vehicles would be the horse and the boat.
Yeah.
But I guess if they made it so the horse could do things and the boat could do things, right now they're just kind of storage extensions from the looks of it.
A little bit.
But without those, you don't get frogs on the boat, that's for sure.
That's true. And what would you do without frogs in a boat?
Clap. Just once, though. The games that, hey, so going back to D&D shit, the games that you run, what would you say? I know you like open-ended stuff, but do you have like one or two just like one shots that you could do it in like 2 sessions or even 1 session, or has it never worked out like that?
That was something I was really trying to push when I did my one shot in my Elysian Twilight setting on stream. Is I was like, if I'm gonna do this on stream, I need to. Ooh, I almost jumped into a pit of lava. I need to be able to manage how long it's going to take. Like I normally never focus on that. Like I don't time limit things or session or anything normally, because I run ongoing long-term campaigns typically. But if this was going on stream, it's like I need to be able to know this is going to be 2 streams. And I managed to run a thing that ran for 2 streams. If I was it was something where I, gave a heads up to the players in advance about, it's like, this is going to be 2 streams. I might push you guys along here or there a little bit to ensure that happens. But that is to ensure that it is 2 streams worth of content, and that's it.
I would just split that up, because combat, I feel, because if you're going to do a one shot, there has to be at least 1 session of combat, right? At least 1 event of combat.
Yeah. I actually, so I took some inspiration from one of my preferred tabletop content creators out there, which is Dimension 20. And they have this sort of this timing, this pacing for their episodes, for their campaigns, where like they'll do an episode of roleplay, an episode of combat. And like, other than maybe having like a lead in to what the next episode is going to focus on, they keep to that pretty well. And that's what I was going for with Rebirth of the Jackdaw, which was the first of the 2 sessions to our stream, was going to be introducing the world, introducing the mission, introducing the players, and letting them kind of fill in that time in the way that players do. And then the second session was them doing the mission. They went to the place, they fought the people, they got the thing, mission complete. And in that scenario, it was 2-hour streams that I was going for. We ended up going for about 3 hours on the second one, where the action took place. But it worked out pretty well. And I think with the experience of having run it now twice, once on stream and once for some friends, I would have a little bit better insight on how to manage it as well. The part in regards to figuring out that pacing for me has always been, if I haven't run it before, how can I possibly know, right?
Sure.
But
yeah, you got to do it to actually have first-hand experience.
Yep. But then once you've reached that point, then you can figure out how long those aspects of the one shot are going to take. And yeah, I would say that is one that I could do on, you know, a repetitive basis, you know, run it multiple times and have, other than, you know, different characters and stuff, pretty consistent experience, I think.
Fun. Yeah, nice. So question needs to be asked then is, how long is that session?
Well, for the streamed one, it was 2 hour sessions because I feel like that as popular as Critical Role is, the reason I have fallen off from watching it is 4 hour sessions are a big time investment. 2 hour sessions feel a lot more approachable. That's also why I do 2 to 3 hour streams. Feels a lot more approachable. You know, but it's still enough
Okay,
where
yeah.
like you can it's the kind of thing where you could potentially throw it on and it could just be there, and it could be noise, and it could be noise for 2 hours, which that's sometimes just what you need is you just need noise for a while. That's that's me at least. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird.
No, I'm like that too. As soon as Critical Role started pushing into the 2 hour or 4+ hour range, it just became a. I got tired like halfway through. It's like
Yeah.
shit. I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah.
And then once you actually start falling behind, like those extra hours, they just keep adding on top of each other. So now it's like,
Exactly.
damn, it's like interest. This is becoming work.
Yeah.
Oh
Um
shit.
yeah, it actually shows too because they made efforts with Critical Role to help alleviate that by they only do 3 weeks out of a month now instead of
Mm-hmm.
consistent weekly. Um but yeah, I don't do one shots a lot, but once I've got one and I've played it a little bit, I think I think I know how to kind of adjust things enough to get consistent results,
Nice.
which is handy for doing that sort of thing.
When you need it, yep. I think
Mm-hmm.
one thing to consider if you haven't already, which might be useful for what we're kind of skirting around here, is a one shot that is solid for the players, but also built with the mentality of seeing if a GM would potentially work together well with one another. If you went forward with the idea of getting a
Right.
GM together for like co-GMing type situations, right? Might be a little different if it's a predefined game, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe the idea would be with the people who are interested to do it, get them to start working on a one shot, like a new one shot that is like multi-person contributed. But yeah, I guess it's a bit more manageable when you're like, hey, I've done it this way, it's worked this way before, now let's try to take that same format where it's like it could be over 2 sessions. First session's a lot of getting to know the world and the character and an NPC and getting towards a situation. Session 2 would be combat encounter and handling
Mm-hmm.
rules and all that crap. Like that alone is seems to be pretty solid. But
Yeah.
if you just like were to like like character building, right? It'd be like one shot building almost with two GMs being the players, if that makes sense. That's a weird way of looking at it actually, but that actually kind of sounds like a fun way of looking at it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because as a GM, that's kind of what you're doing half the time, anyways, right? Except you're just
Mm-hmm.
your one character is the game, and there's so many features in the form of towns and NPCs and lore and factions, and that's a wild way to convert the scope of it a little bit.
Yeah. And speaking of tabletop RPGs, as we've done so much while playing Minecraft here, a little bit off topic, not directly relating to that or anything, but something that I've thought about more recently is like there's all these. I I want to start a long term tabletop stream. You know, sort of like what you're doing with Horizon Exploration and stuff. I want to have something that just goes, got consistent players, and we just play our game. Um, But specifically, what I was thinking about in that regard was like there's all these really neat like rules light RPGs and stuff, and you've kind of
Yep.
it kind of feels like with Horizon Exploration that is slightly what we lean into a little bit because it is a lot of roleplay stuff. It's less leaning into the specific crunch of the game, and it's adjusting aspects of the game as necessary to suit what we're doing. But um, I thought about taking, kind of a same situation, or just doing something entirely kind of new, just like super like rules light, but with enough there that the players have something where they can see kind of what they're good at and what they're doing and stuff like that, without needing to rely on like making the next big RPG. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, that was my rough take on it, and you've kind of observed that campaign very closely, being in it yourself. But
mhm,
yeah, my thought there was it's it's a way to look at the game a little differently, but also try to lean in a bit more on the player experience, not just the game experience, right? Because the game itself, you could play any system and still come to the same experience from like a enjoyment of the system type of a experience, where
mhm,
it's the player. I don't know. Maybe how I haven't really thought about this too carefully about like why it just like seemed like a good idea, because as a GM I like the improv, and from the player's perspective I always like the idea of sandbox,
mhm,
but trying to run a sandbox campaign is always tricky because you're trying to juggle the rules and the players and the overarching story, and that can get jumbled really quick. So if the players were the story, kind of like how good GMs will tell you, it's the player's experience, right? It's the player's story that you're following. But in various, I guess, seasons or episodes, there might be like a NPC of intrigue, and that's I think on the GM, which I don't think I've done a great job at, unfortunately. But the I don't know. For me, it was always like the fun of D&D is the ability to imagine crazy ideas, have fun with it, while fitting the players and the player interactions in the party and revolving a story around that. Something's in there, but yeah, that I think with the way 5e has made it, very kind of rules ambiguous in a sense, it gave me the flexibility to be like, you know what, I could just take this as a loose set of guidelines, reflavor the shit out of it into something I think is cool and might
mhm.
be a way of players to express a little bit of their creativity in their character creation and backstory. And then again, it's hard for me to self-reflect on this because I haven't played my own campaign, but I always like the idea of a player having character growth, not like gear growth, right?
Right.
So that RPG aspect of, okay, well, how does your character grow through this story, and how does like your imagine, because there's also the imagination of a character when you're building it, and then you put it on paper, and then with the party dynamic it's like, ah, shit, this character's like this now. Right? Or at least for those that know what I'm talking about, if you know, right? But I always like encouraging the people I try to play and run games with to be like, hey, okay, well, if we're starting at level 1, you're technically a nobody. You don't really have any spectacular skill. How do we get you to that level 20 badass that you imagined, right? When you were
Mhm.
creating your character. So, yeah, the rules were less important to me. It was more about that journey. I thought was what's fun about D&D, which I
Yeah.
think comes across in the type of people characters I might play. But sometimes, maybe, you tell me.
um. So I started thinking, right?
Mhm.
Dangerous, I know.
We
Uh,
love thinking, though.
while I was doing a stream earlier in the week, I was playing American Truck Simulator. So of course I was
Yeah, yeah.
thinking about it's like I actually talked about it on stream, but like one of the thoughts I had while I was playing is like, how would this how would you do this in an RPG.
Oh,
Because
truck simulator.
yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
how do you do this? And here's what I came up with. I came up with something that I think would be really fun to play. Um,
yeah.
Zombie
Mad Max.
apocalypse.
Okay.
Exactly. So here's what I was thinking is like, what makes an interesting RPG story out of taking something from one place and going to another with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I thought, well, one thing I like as a player in RPGs, in tabletop RPGs, is having some sort of base of operations. I like getting to a point where I've earned like some sort of base of operations that I can build up and invest in and stuff like that. I'm thinking you can do that, like, because that's also kind of part of how that video game works is you're building up like your trucks and your garage and everything like that. um and so I was thinking about how to kind of translate that stuff into tabletop. And when I thought about it, I was like, there's only a few ways this really works out. And one of those is post apocalypse. The other is like Wild West. And you're doing like a pilgrimage, or not a pilgrimage, but like uh, uh, an Oregon Trail type situation.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna immediately vote in favor of vehicles because the Oregon Trail scenario has the potential, unless this is your goal for the campaign. I think it has way too much potential to get out of control with player choice and logic.
yeah,
But the whole like Mad Max build your build your like supply line or garage or whatever, that I think you're onto something there. That also makes it easy for NPCs to come in and out. It would make it easy for new, player swaps to come in and
exactly.
out.
Um,
There could always be like a home base that takes you a period of time to get back, which could just be, fade to black, whatever. Yeah, there's something there. That's an idea.
yeah, and I was thinking about that now, with kind of what we were talking about just a minute ago, with like the way that you run Horizon Exploration and stuff, where you're less focused on the specific crunch of the game and more on the characters and the story and stuff like that. Um, and it made me think of things like what I've heard people talk about with like Cyberpunk Red and stuff like that, the way those games kind of play. Um, but I was thinking about this specific campaign prompt that I came up with on that stream from Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday. Normally I do it on Monday. Uh, and I was thinking that would be, I think, a really cool one to do because again, sandbox is the thing that I do. It is my specialty as a DM. I feel like is sandbox, and I've run post-apocalypse sandbox before, and it was one of the most fun campaigns I've run as a DM. I think,
Nice.
because like I don't know, it just worked out really well for me.
I mean,
Um,
hell, when Sandbox works out, it's so good.
right. Um, and now I'm thinking about taking this concept and making that my stream game.
There you go. There you go. I like that.
Because I think you know one of the things I've always like, because I probably invited you to like 50 different games of different genres and concepts. Like I always
Once
want to
upon
try
a
the
time.
different genres in
Yeah.
in tabletop. I love, because like fantasy is great, but there's a lot of fantasy going around. I want to try something else. Sometimes I want superheroes. Sometimes I want zombie apocalypse. You know, um, and
Well,
and
I also think it's neat with the VTubing stuff is that you have the flexibility to be like, well, portal open to this planet, sci-fi, weird, but
yeah.
but another idea that kind of piggybacks on your little Mad Max idea is it doesn't even have to be like trucker situated. It could be like your home base could be through a portal,
hmm
right? Which then I guess I feel like there's an idea there where this like in motion, maybe there's even something that's like technically chasing you or after you that can come in and out at any time. But
Yeah.
the flexibility. Well, the point I was gonna originally start with was you have I think a good experience in the fact that you've tried so many systems and so many
Mm.
themes that you have a good mixed bag of like experiences that you've gone through, which I feel like a lot of GMs don't experiment if they find like how do I want to say it? Because it's not that they don't experiment. Like every game's unique. Every player usually will bring something a new challenge to the table, right? But I do feel like there is a large number of people who kind of stick to rules as written and
Mm.
use what's the word, like supplementary books, but it's still building on the same, I guess, with D&D being the main example, like the whole 5e universe, right? Which has, to be fair, expanded across, multiple, versions of the game system. But like, man, from a lot of what I see, it's like even like the whole Matt Mercer's campaigns are still very grounded in what's the continent and the world of D&D? Was it Faerun? Or am I mixing it up?
Uh,
There's a
Forgotten
world, right?
Realms is like
Or
the
did they have a
typical D and
few?
D one.
Yeah, Forgotten Realms. They had I forget the world name, but yeah, I don't know. Just the fact that you've dabbled in a bunch of different systems, I think you can take a lot of the good from each. So I think
Mm.
there's a lot you could do with it. I'd say go for it. I'd say why not? But also, if you stream it, I think I think there's a lot of potential to go with this co-GMing potential. Just because if you're
Yeah.
doing D&D online, there's so many nerds out there running games.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean honestly the code jamming thing is something that since it started coming up, I've been kind of excited in talking about it and stuff in more detail, even if I don't exactly know where to start with it. But
That's why we talk about it, dude. Here's another question then. If co-GMing became a bit more common, and I'm also thinking about this too because with the whole 5e drama, it's like people are talking. Now might be a time to start something.
mhm.
So if you co-GM'd, would it be more attractive to find a GM that you work with so well that you like be a pair or a trio? Or do you think it'd be more interesting to have like a rotating group?
I
Because
think
I feel like, well, before actually, sorry, let me
oh
make one more point.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
so I do worry though that because people do have a tendency to sink into what they're comfortable with. So I feel like even if there was a rotation going on, unless it's organized to rotate, I feel like eventually people are just going to find people they vibe with and then fall into the kind of groups anyways, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, have you thought about that?
I feel like there's a lot of potential strength to a rotation.
Yeah.
Um, for the same reason that the co-GMing thing I feel like has the strengths in the first place is the more voices, the more better. Uh, the more ideas and all that you can work with and stuff. But yeah, I do think you're kind of right that like just like instinctually, basically, people will just kind of find what fits them best and then
Mm-hmm.
just kind of go with that regardless. Um, but yeah, I do think like a rotation does have a lot of potential strength to it. So if organized properly, that could be uh, a really good idea, a really strong thing to work with. Calm down.
Oh, did that come across?
I heard something. I don't know what it was,
Oh, okay, I was pulling out a notebook.
but
Let me make some notes here, good sir.
Yeah. Man, so old school. When I take notes, I do it on Google Drive.
Please, dude. I've gone through the whole digital route. There's still something unique about pen and paper. Don't tell me you haven't doodled something on pen and paper when thinking
I
D&D ideas.
Back in ye olden days when I used to work normal jobs and I wasn't just DMing for a living, I I'd always have like I would take my backpack to work wherever it was, and then
Yeah.
I'd have notebooks and stuff and my phone so I could look up RPG stuff and whatnot and work on like D&D things while at work, doing it on paper the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
I was actually talking about that recently to some people who some of my players were looking into converting our campaign over to level up advanced 5th edition instead of just the standard D&D, just because I like it. It's my preference for the game.
Okay. Yeah.
But also now with everything like I like supporting this third party publisher as well, so there's that
Oh yeah.
aspect of it too. But like they, it's a bunch of people who are so used to having like D&D Beyond, and it kind of holds your hand and runs you through character creation. You don't really have to think about stuff too much. It does all the hard work for you,
Right.
which I got used to as well. Like I feel like a lot of people probably did. But the way I learned D&D 5e was by taking pen and paper, just in whenever I had downtime and just writing out new character ideas, so I could figure out not only how to make characters but also having the understanding of what goes where on the character sheet and what everything means and stuff like that.
I remember the days of addiction.
Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I feel like that has been my go-to method for learning new RPGs is going through character creation a bunch of times.
Makes sense. Get you used to it. Get you
Yeah,
come across different situations depending on the class you're working with and all that goodness.
yeah. But yeah, I do still I don't use them as much as I used to, but I still keep my notebooks around just in case. Um,
You
if
need
I
it one
if I
day.
can't be at my computer for whatever reason, then I can still take my notes, do my D&D stuff, even if it's not as expedient.
Mm-hmm. My big issue with taking physical notes was always being like not transferring it to a digital format afterwards,
Mm,
which I feel like would be a lot easier when you need to like manage the notes,
yeah.
because half the time what I'll end up doing is just I'll make a new page and scribble so it's like a summary at the top for myself, and that's like it, which is definitely not probably not ideal, but it gets me through it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so okay, so you know, if it's organized, right, organization is going to be a huge deal.
Yeah, I think you are right about like people kind of falling into their spaces, but
Yeah.
if it's part of the system, basically, if it's managed properly, I think there's probably ways to do it and get the most out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's no one's really stalking about, or what did I just say? Did I say stalking? Sorry, no one's talking about um, it having to be a fixed method either, right? Like people could always go and group up on their own and do their own little thing once they do the networking part, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think yeah, this would be interesting to try out, because it's not going to just be a question about players, but it's also a question about who's involved behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's going to become like its own experience if the idea is to have rotating GMs, which I think roles and responsibilities, if we want to talk dorky business shit or corporate lingo, but right, like the GM definitely you're gonna have to lean in. So I guess we'll talk about that real quick, right? So we got your God, what would you even call it? You're obviously gonna have NPCs, right? That's gonna be a category.
Mhm.
What else would you have? You probably have to have something for like location and point of
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah, I
That's gonna
think
be kind of world setting,
yeah, like overworld is like
overworld,
the term that comes to mind. RPGs.
right? And then I'm gonna probably voice and say that scenario might be its own category.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a good idea thinking about what the important aspects are and
Mm-hmm.
how that would be divided.
Oh no, what are you saying?
Um,
Anar, welcome by the way. Love talking taking physical notes because I summarize major plot points weirdly, and it's like seeing the scribblings of a drunk oracle. That's true. That is true. And actually, it's not even, it has nothing to even do about physical, right? It's like right now, like it's easy to talk and share ideas, but until you put it like on paper or in a physical form, it's ideas are just ideas. Like they don't mean anything unless you act on it somehow and materialize it. So yeah, yeah. Making notes, physical or digital, like once you look at it, even digital notes could just be a scrambled mess. And I think a lot of people get distracted when they're taking digital notes of being like overly grammatically punctual because you see that squiggly line, you're like, oh, I gotta fix it now. But I'd actually probably encourage people to just type it and worry about spell checking and all that BS later. Now, if you type slow, that's a shame. You should have practiced when you were younger.
I
No,
think
you can still practice.
one of the best bits of advice I got about taking notes
Yeah.
back in the olden days when I was in school was caveman speak.
Mm. Explain.
Because the notes don't have to be read by anyone but you, so you don't have to worry about formatting and grammar and stuff so much as you know what's important. And if you're writing down because writing stuff out might be slower than hearing it spoken, usually is
Yeah.
for most people, I think. uh, and so hitting the keywords and making sure you have just enough in between to keep the context there is kind
Hmm.
of what's important. So,
Yeah. As long as you can read your notes and understand it, it doesn't have to be organized. That's part of the brain being a huge ass mess.
yeah. So the way it was explained to me was like doing caveman speak. You're cutting out a lot of the grammar, but you still understand the main message.
Yeah. And if you can't come to a conclusion of a main message, well, you got some more thinking to do, I think is going to be what has
Mhm.
to happen next or what may be missing from the equation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, GMs, right? Like if GMs were to collaborate and split roles, or I guess again, what I'm thinking is what would the roles even be? Or how could we categorize what a GM would be focused? I feel like NPCs though, that has to be collaborative. Like I feel like NPCs has to be like each party plays a role in creating at least one NPC of intrigue.
Yeah, I don't think it's something that would fall in the hands of just a single person, but I
Right.
think you
But it
could
could.
it could. And regardless of how the fine details work, I think what you can do is have one of these categories being NPCs in the context of the broad strokes. You might know that you have a town, so then you're figuring out what the key players in that town are. You've got a town master, you've got general storekeeper, you've got temple person,
Yeah.
stuff like that, and then filling in the fine details and figuring out who these characters are on a specific level uh, could end up being more of that collaborative, or you might just have a person who's like just a savant with writing out those characters or something.
Right. You know what? I'm gonna get a little sidetracked here, but after playing a little bit in your campaign, thank you again for inviting me to that, even though we've been on break for a while. And then also having run my campaign, which has also gone on an extended break. So I've had a ton of time to think about D&D without playing. And then also thinking about just ideas through the AI series that I'm doing, right? Just tickling my imagination. I've actually thought to myself about like one shots and like, man, what is the mistakes that we all seem to be making with one shots that cause it to go on for more than being a one shot, right? I
Hmm.
feel like I try to draw a lot of inspiration from video games because there's a lot of illusions when it comes to video game development and the illusion of choice and the interaction in certain sandbox games between like the main story and the side quests, right?
Hmm.
I feel like one shots we make the mistake of sometimes introducing far too many NPCs. We make the mistake of sometimes placing the players in a location that has too many potential for variance, like literally dropping them into a town when it's like, hey, I need you to leave this town in 10 minutes and go on this mission. Don't get distracted by the bakery and the armor store and the 20,000 NPCs that live here. you know?
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, if we have like rotating GMs, right? I feel like we could get away and just say each of you guys collaborate together to create a pair, right? If it's one GM or maybe like one NPC per GM, right? Because the GM needs something to chime in on and have some fun with it, right? I feel
Yeah.
like we all do it a little bit to try to be in the game as well. so so yeah, like one NPC per GM. And if they really have no idea or would rather not do that because they want to focus on, like, say, all the locations, I feel like that's fair game. But I feel locations, if it's a long form RPG, that's going to be a different scope than, say, a one shot, right? But a
Hmm.
one shot, the location needs to be more like during a mission or a quest that the party goes off to do. It's why am I going there? What does it look like on the way there, if that's even relevant? And then once they get there, what is there, right? Who is there? What are they going to encounter? Rather than, this is a bit of a rabbit hole because there's so many angles that can come in here. But yeah, I'm starting to wonder. It's like maybe if I ever try to run one shots, I shouldn't put them in a town to meet each other if they're playing for the first time. I should just be like, hey, you guys were recruited for this group. You're currently in the back of the caravan on the way to some location, and then some shit happens. Right. I feel like that would be a better starting point for a
Hmm.
for a one shot length campaign than a yeah, I don't know. You get what I'm getting at though? It's like putting
Yeah.
them in a town adds way too much potential for distraction.
Yeah. For something where you're only going to be in it for a set amount of time. I think what you mentioned there is actually kind of one of the good things that had been done with the Lost Mines of Phandelver uh, beginner adventure for D&D is that in the description in the book, they start the adventure on the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've
On the
already
road. Yeah.
gotten the mission, you're already on the way. And yeah, I think for the reasons you're saying, like I think that's a really good idea because then you don't have that potential of they're just here and they don't know what to do, or they want to go every direction except for the right direction, because
yeah.
maybe they're new players, maybe they're getting into this for the first time and they don't have the context of experience to kind of guide them through their first adventure or something, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is another can of worms to consider too. Is campaign one shot for players that have played before versus those who haven't? Because those that
Mm.
haven't, I feel, will require a bit of nuance, or maybe even just a slower pace to break it up in case. there are abundance of questions, you know. But I don't know,
Yeah.
man. Actually, would that even matter if we're considering an idea of, hey, since 5e, if we're going with like a more rules loose and more just experience the game, like get your head in the game kind of a deal, would the rules really be that important? Because the GM could just direct a very flexible set of guidelines for them to follow. I guess it depends on what system you want to use as a foundation, if a system at all, if you don't decide to like tease your own basic idea. But that's, again, this is a whole nother can of worms. Let's stay away from that one for right now. Getting ahead of myself. But yeah. But anyways, back to rules. So yeah. What goes into you prepping for your GMing?
So I mean, looking at it in the context of like prepping a campaign, or like looking at it in the context of prepping a session.
Let's start with the campaign, because that's going to have some overarching categories, right? That you'd have
Mhm.
to look into. And then for a session, we'd see what's important.
Okay. Well,
Does that make sense?
yeah. So let me get out of the water real quick so I don't drown. Um, I've been something I struggled with in the past is having like a main thread in my campaigns, right?
Thread meaning.
Like some initial thing that, yeah, or some main plot line for the party to follow, right? A
Okay.
main story quest, to put it in that kind of phrasing.
Okay.
Um,
So that would be. There's a word for this. It's. Well, I'll just make a note for it being like the starting intent.
mm,
Okay.
um, so I've been working more towards doing that, which is how the campaign that I'm looking to start this month uh, kind of came to be. I was like, I before I even, instead of just being like, here's the world, here's the players, here is a first quest that doesn't relate to anything, and then just letting them loose in it. Instead, now I'm setting up some initial like goalposts, I suppose. The
Give
party
an
might not
example.
necessarily be aware of it, but yeah. So the way that I've done this is I've determined if it's going to be a campaign where there is a villain, like a specific villain, I figure out who
Mm-hmm.
the villain is. I figure out what their goal is. Um, and then I've looked at what their minions are, if they have them. Um,
Okay, you're talking about from a GM's perspective purely,
yep.
not okay. Yeah, so these are overarching, I guess you can call them perspectives and incentives for not only the antagonist of the overarching campaign, but also his motivations and their effectively their henchmen and the structure that those interactions would be in.
Yep, because I figure if I have those 3 points,
Mm-hmm.
then I can fill in the in between from the start to the end a lot more easily. Because knowing their goal, I know more or less how, one potential way the campaign will end. If all goes poorly for the players, the villain accomplishes their goal or whatever, and they get the bad end, or something along those lines. But you know where the end point is for the villain, so you know where roughly where the end point is for the campaign, and you know where it's starting, because starting is kind of you drop the players in and campaign goes.
Yeah.
Um,
In a way, this is how like a lot of video games have designed their quest line, right? There's always some big bad at the end that you have to deal with, and along the way, the bosses could be henchmen or they could just be challenges along the way.
yep. Um, but then on top of that, I using some resources I've found online, to get some loose ideas of what I can put together, figuring out some aspects of the local area for the starting point, right?
Sure.
So some main points about the local geography, uh, what kind of terrain is nearby, if there are any other settlements nearby, if there's a an actual full-fledged city anywhere in the region, what the primary road, any notes about that, any water sources, other landmarks, stuff like that. um
You ever consider as far as how that location sustains itself?
I usually don't go super deep into that, but there's definitely some elements of thought that goes into that, because I think when you figure out those aspects, you can start to figure out what the specific flavor of this settlement is compared to everywhere else. Because if you don't think about that ever, any town might as well be the same as any other town, basically,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but if you know, like, this town is a mining town and it thrives on the iron that they're mining out of the nearby hills, then that is going to feel very different from a cattle town, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Also leads into overlaps, the Venn diagram of factions and the faction interactions and all that crap. But
mhm.
okay, so yeah, starting small. Yeah, that's a good point about the antagonists and their incentives. That definitely gives you a degree of focus and where to plot points, milestones, lore stones,
Yeah.
whatever maybe. Locations are definitely a big can of worms. Yeah, I actually, even just talking in this short little bit about it, bleeding into faction interactions and then just the sheer depth that you can go or lack thereof. Yeah, locations are a trap.
Yeah, like, exactly based on what you're saying before. Like, if you have all this thought that goes into a setting, even if you don't have all this thought, players might start wondering about these things. And if they're being dropped into this place, they're probably not going to leave it immediately. Some of them might want to, but others might not want to, and they might want to be like, "Oh, who's local town master? What's Are there any temples here? What's You said there was a river. What's the deal there? Do they do a lot of, like, river fishing, or do they have, like, a ferry going up and down the river? What's the whole deal there? There's a lot of ways you can go just by knowing you're in a town, and
Mm-hmm.
just being curious. Um, yeah, so for planning a campaign, I think about basically the start with the location and the end with the villain. Um, and that is how I've been laying the groundwork for planning my campaigns, and then everything in between is a lot easier to figure out. Obviously, the way I run my games is very open because they're long-term kind of sandboxy games. So all the in between might vary quite a bit between different parties, but um
Yeah, but see, gosh, I think what I like about what you're saying here is that, and Cody, welcome. I'm dying on the inside. You know what's up. But the the fact that I think players, right? I'm trying to think from like a player's perspective as well, because the location, unless someone really likes making locations, or I feel like it, whoever whoever prefers or enjoys world building, the overworld stuff you're talking about, I feel like they would, if they enjoyed that extent, there's a good chance they also would go as deep as it what we're talking about here with locations themselves and giving us an ability to kind of swap it out depending on who the
mhm.
baddie is, right? But from a GM's perspective and the NPC building perspective, there's I feel there's a bit more of a personal element with the GM because you're going to have to play these henchmen and you're going to have to play these big bads. Whereas the location might dictate the type of NPCs you create. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's my imagination, but I feel like the location, unless you really like writing and world building and faction building and all that stuff, it kind of falls into a different circle of the Venn diagram. But
Mhm.
maybe that's me oversimplifying it. For those tuning in to either as a stream or over here on YouTube, we're talking about ideas for if people who run tabletop RPG games like got together and were to like do it collaboratively, how would that even work? Because there's been a few cases that I've seen in my IRL side of playing these hobbies where, one dude is literally a player, but he had some say in like the backstory of the campaign. I'm like, don't you have spoilers in your head, dude? It felt a little weird to me that he was a player and a co-GM at the same time. But I also had a situation where the GM would like switch the GM seat and behave they'll swap NPCs basically, right? Or they'll be sitting like off to the side, and while one's narrating and improving, the other one's like double checking rules and helping players, right? Which I think
Mm.
is super convenient. But that works a little better in like an IRL setting when you're face to face and you can walk around and help players. But online, like how would that interaction be online? Because we also have to struggle with the lack of like an IRL camera in a lot of cases, unless you're comfortable and it's like an IRL streamed event. So you lose out on body language, you lose out on like GM intent when they're staring you down, being like, do something, or it's your turn, buddy. Yeah. So, and then there's also the audio delay, which we haven't really talked about, but that's 300 millisecond audio delay. We've noticed it when we chit chat amongst ourselves, and we kind of get used to it the more we hang out and kind of know how much someone doesn't know how to shut up. But the there's some digital challenges, technical challenge, but also just like again, how would we do this? So we're I'm asking a lot of silly directed questions, and Az here has given us a lot of his experience and thoughts, being a huge nerd, but a good one. So yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to think of it right as you're telling me different aspects and what you would go through. It's like, okay, well, if people got together and we were to organize, let's assume the organizing part gets taken care of and
Hmm.
is managed somehow. What would people need to bring to the table? What's the contributions? What's the involvement? So obviously scheduling, right? People are going to have to get together to do this. That's a given. I think GMs definitely need to maybe, gosh, if there's two GMs, two chefs in the kitchen, how are they going to agree on the antagonist, dude? Or maybe it's not about the antagonist, because if it's, unless you get a stride going with the person you collaborate with and decide to maybe do something more longer form, maybe whoever's doing the world building would have an idea of what's the big threat, right? And then
Hmm.
you guys can build NPCs for the henchmen, quote unquote, right? Because that's way more
Yeah.
flexible for the GM. You can explore a lot of different ideas depending on what the one shot's going to be about.
Yeah.
So, okay. What else? You got anything else as far as what goes into prep work and planning?
I mean, I feel like
How about
much
like
of
item stuff? Sorry,
item
I'm cutting
stuff,
you off.
that's an interesting one. I've always felt like, and it's much less of a problem if you're not worried about the crunch of the game and focusing on the game has to stay balanced and things like that. But when playing typical D&D games, I've always felt like I don't I don't think I understand the individual item balance well enough to be able to come up with something completely new, right? I can tweak
Mm-hmm.
things. I can take elements of something and putting on something else just fine. But coming up with something entirely like an entirely new concept, like I can't. I don't feel like I have the right scope for that. However, if you're less concerned about the every individual number of the game system, then I think that becomes a lot easier. Um, and seeing kind of like seeing and playing with uh Horizon Exploration, I feel like has kind of opened my eyes to how potent reflavoring can be and stuff as well. So um
Cool.
my perspective on items is become a lot more flexible more recently, I think.
Okay.
In the context of what what that would mean in regards to the co-GMing thing. Uh, I mean, shoot, what do you even need to do there? Like, when I think about items, I think about game mechanics. I think about lore. I feel like those are the important aspects. Um, though you could also throw an important aspect in what what an object, an item, equipment, non non character thing could mean to the player or players. That could be a third aspect to think about. Because when you're when you're running a game, you want to think about uh, the player experience a little bit too. You can use random tables all day every day, and some players might be there for that, but some players also are like, if they're the guy with the bow and they are like number one marksman in the country, and
Yeah.
everything they do is a bow, if that game never gets a magic bow, it might be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
So thinking about what the players are looking for in items, kind depending on context. I mean, anywhere from equipment to vehicles to just random objects in the world. It could mean a lot of things, but I think the same categories apply to any of that stuff. What it means to the players, what it means to the world, and how it interacts with the game.
Yeah, items are another big can of worms. But I feel like give a player like a personal something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I always looked at I struggled with the D&D, the 5e system and their weapons and this weird sense of gear progressions that players would have with it
Mm-hmm.
because almost every campaign, almost without fail that I've ever run, there's a player or play actually I would say players, they look at progression in the form of gear progression, not character development. And I'm just like, you're missing such a big part of this game, my guy. But
Yeah.
like, I get it because video games have trained a lot of people to think of gear a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most interesting items that I've seen people create through like the homebrewing items that a lot of people do, and I think you've shared a couple few of them with me, right? But it was always items that had less to do about the mechanics of the game and more about flipping a mechanic that you were comfortable with and making it uncomfortable. So one example I'll give, and I don't remember again where this came from. It might have been you, it could have been somewhere else. I don't remember. But one was a cursed ring that when you put it on, I don't remember if it was like once a day or if it alternated. Like there was a gem that would light up when it's on and when it's off, it would, dim. But it would turn the next nat 20 or nat 1 to the opposite result,
Mm. Yeah,
which
something like that really is an interesting item, I think, because like there is a feel like this could be really good for me. It could also be really bad.
yeah.
But it's something that you'll probably see a lot of players are really interested in, because like there's the potential like this could be a game changer for the better. And like, what if that's the case? Um, I've always liked items like the mechanics of items. Again, something I was never super great at. I mostly would work off of ideas from other items or stuff that people have discussed elsewhere, taking ideas from other DMs and stuff like that. But um the appeal to the players is definitely the most interesting thing, because like in the campaign I'm running, um you know at one point the party got a ring of water walking, and they're just like, all right, we've got this, I guess. uh
Yeah.
Most recent session, they actually used it because someone got knocked off a boat by a sea serpent, but
Oh, fun.
um it only came up because they're like, okay, we're going to be on a boat, we're going to be on the ocean, and we know that this serpent might be lurking, so maybe one of us will put this on. But before that, it's like, all right, we got this, I guess we'll hold on to it for a rainy day. But in another campaign, also something I found out is people like swords with specific designs. If you describe a sword, someone is going to want it.
That
um
yeah, it's a sword. Come on now.
One of my earliest campaigns, obviously I had to have a sword with a red blade. So uh I described a sword in the first dungeon that they were in that had a red blade, and one of the players took it. And down the line, as it turned out in the story, this red blade was actually sort of a focus for rage, kind of borrowing some ideas from other media and stuff. And in addition to that, so there was some aspect of it like taking the willpower out of the character, never taking out their ability to dictate what they do, but
Mm-hmm.
in universe kind of taking that willpower and focusing it instead into fury. But then also there was some strengths to the sword. They could use it to make a portal, a classic Yamato move, just cut open a portal in the world. um but it was also just a good sword. It was like a +1 sword as well. So someone was really interested initially just because they saw a sword with a red blade. They're just like, I want that. um
I must have it. Yeah, yeah.
and in my current campaign, one of my players is just collecting swords at this point. He got a dancing sword that was made by demons, that he uses. There is also more recently this sword that they got from a wraith lord that has an obsidian blade, and there are etched alien runes along the blade that in your mind they feel like they glow, but you can tell there's no actual light there, but it like tricks the mind to like seeing that glow without there actually being luminescence to it. And he's like,
Spooky.
that's a weird sword, I want it. He dove off of a ship, dove down, like threw everything he had at to chasing this sword that was knocked off the boat, and he ended up getting it. And so he's been building up a stockpile of weird swords, because anytime I describe one, he's just like, I need the sword.
Nice. But see, that's did he make the character intending that, or is that something
No,
that
it's just something
became
that
a
came up.
thing?
It
Yeah,
just
see,
came
that's
up in the
that's character
game.
development. That's memorable right there, right?
Yeah.
So
But yeah,
cursed
what
or
the
not,
items
demonic or
mean.
holy, doesn't matter. As,
Yeah.
as long as it has styles, it goes in my bag.
Yeah, what the items mean to the players is
It's huge, yeah. And it's also what keeps the player like yeah, feeding into like what their interests are is that it gets exposed in the game, right? I feel
mhm.
like if you're so focused on the rules and whatnot, you miss out on kind of the player's ability to impact the game in a sense.
Yeah.
And also being a professional person who runs games, I think thinking along thoughts along that line of thinking are good because this is my corporal brain coming in here. You do need to consider, right? Like player retention, word of mouth, which I imagine a lot of, GMing does end up being kind of word of mouth. But the fact that,
Mhm.
you have a group that's been around for a good, half a year longer, or at least a campaign where players are interested enough to stick around for that long is
Right.
cool, right? Like it's good. That means you're doing something right there, and they enjoy it and appreciate it. So they're supporting it. Plus, maybe they just want to see the end of it, right? They want to see how it's going to conclude, and that's enough to drive them to keep playing. So
Mhm.
yeah, you don't really think of it when you're making the game, but my head ends up defaulting to shit like that. Okay, yeah, good stuff, dude. It's yeah, there's so much more we could talk about.
Uh, in my chat, Armedi here said collecting them swords for that transmog set, which
Yeah.
that's I understand that. I've played Warcraft and Final Fantasy enough to know the importance of fashion MMOs.
Yeah, and then we also know a lot of there's actually a surprisingly high number of people who play D&D who are open to the concept of LARPing to the point where a lot of them actually just flat out cosplay when they, go to
Yeah.
like a convention or a meetup. Hell, I've had two GMs that I've played with IRL that showed up to the hobby shop dressed up, and it was weird, but I still remember it to this day. It was crazy, and it was a good time. So
Yeah.
right, yeah, good stuff. Well, I'm gonna probably call it here. I know there's a lot more we could talk about, but maybe we'll do a little bit more on Tuesday, because you still on for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. For,
Absolutely.
for those unfamiliar, as part of the Exploring AI series that I do, which we play with AI tools, controversy aside, it's been interesting. It sparks creativity. It sparks your imagination. It's an interesting time to get some hands on with these tools and check it out. But I had put out an invitation to anyone who would be interested talking about either AI tools or just kind of going through the tools. Maybe they've heard about it, but they've never actually tried it. Or I guess in the case of maybe Az here, where maybe we'll end up talking more D&D and the idea of using AI to help with D&D concepts. I mean, I don't know. We haven't really said what we're going to do, but much like tonight, I'm sure with my rambling head and your creative ideas, we can make something of it. So, yeah, next
Yeah.
Tuesday we are planning. What time did you say? You said the 9 a.m. slot for the Western, right? So,
Yeah, I think it was
11
early.
p.m., 11 a.m. your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keep an eye out on that, folks. That might be something we do or we will do. And I think we'll probably chit chat about this a bit more too. If no one is on next Thursday, maybe we'll keep at it during D&D or not D&D, Minecraft. You said Minecraft at the beginning, I said D&D at the end. So we're 1 for 1. Let's go.
Nice.
But yeah, it's an interesting topic. I like the idea of brainstorming with people to figure out ways to do things with others, right? Whether it be as part of the HiVECORE group or finding new people to do stuff with. Cannot. How do I want to phrase it? I adamantly believe that as part of the internet and the growth of the internet and the changes that are coming and have been happening, and with people noticing just how the world operates now that we have more insight through sharing stories and whatnot through the internet, it's it's interesting. It's interesting to me seeing how, again, I grew up when the internet was but a concept among nerds, and yeah, I saw the .com bullshit. I saw bulletin boards. I saw AOL and chats and all that fun stuff. To Google, to how business has invaded the internet, to how e-commerce is a thing, and just how business and tech runs today and has so much influence, and to how a bunch of creative people have figured out a way to do the thing they love and share it through the internet and get a lot of people to support it. So there's potential there, man. I strongly still adamantly believe there's something there. I don't have all the answers because I'm only a year into learning about it, really, but it's interesting, that's for sure.
Hmm.
So yeah, co-GMing, getting some GMs together to try to do something cool. Because I still see a ton of people playing GMing, or not playing playing under GMs. I've seen plenty of channels that, there's a common GM, right?
Hmm.
And the players rotate. And I feel like the only time I've really seen a GM swap is with a player that's a part of their series regularly, right? Where
Yeah.
they'll be like, "Hey, I want to try it out," but it's still the same group of people. But which is bound to happen here too if this idea gains any traction in any circle. But I don't know, the idea of giving it a go. There's potential there, so I think we should keep talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna close out, but before I do, you want to say anything? You want to before I kick you out of here?
No, I think I'm all talked out.
Talked out, man. It's funny because you get talking about D&D, and if it's not for me interrupting as I do, you'd go on and on and on.
uh, I
You
think.
know,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, no, actually, I was about to do something. I was about to do a 180. So finish your train of thought.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, I think this is getting to a good point to wrap up as well. So I've mostly been just looking out the window of my house while we've been talking.
Nice. That's
My
why we need the tavern to get done. Come on, where's
it,
Jamie and everybody to to get that finished so we can all
exactly.
hang out by the campfire.
Yeah.
But yeah, that aside, what I was gonna say, and it's already ruined itself, is I've been in this labyrinth for like 2 hours at least, and I
Uh-huh.
haven't bumped into the mighty Munitar once, but I just did. So get out of my way, Cal. Dang.
Incredible.
All right, let me get to the exit here. As it was good chatting. I'll catch you
Yeah.
next time, and then obviously, if you're free offline and you see me on, we can continue it there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'm out, dude. See
Have a
ya.
good one. All right. Well, as we said there, I think this is about going to wrap it up on this scenic view out my western window. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the stream. I know we set out to finish the Spire of Ascuron. We did do that, thankfully. Didn't have any other plans really in mind, but you know, you might have seen we started the work on creating a path and started the layout for a bridge to make the way over to the Grove from this area. I'm thinking I'll build up the bridge much in the same style that Rig from Nova Swarm did on the bridge going over to the between Spawn and the portal house there. But I was also thinking I might do a rail alongside it to help kind of expedite people on their way. We'll see. We'll see. That's something for another stream, another time though. But yeah, everyone who's been in the chat, anyone who's been lurking, anyone who is checking out the VOD on YouTube after the fact, thank you guys for coming by. I appreciate you each and every single one, and I look forward to seeing you guys again in the next one. This week we've got actually let me just pull up my schedule real quick because we've got some things coming up. Tomorrow, we're jumping in. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock CST, CDT. We're jumping into No Man's Sky to continue some of the quests in that game and see a little bit more about the cool things that have been added with some of the more recent patches. But then this Saturday evening, we're looking to jump into some Human Fall Flat with special guest Nefeltanen. I think that'll be a really good time. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you come on by or check it out on the VOD after the fact. It'll always be up on YouTube eventually. I've been trying to get a little bit better at keeping my uploads, my VOD uploads a little bit more regular. But that is it for me. Everyone who might still be around, have a good one.